When is the last time you listened to a podcast about web development, web design, and small business and didn't fall asleep? Yes, we cover web development, web design, and small business, but like actual human beings with personalities. If you're a beginner, we're not going to talk over your head. It's more like asking your buddy for help. We have guests, we have fun, and let me tell you, these two can get off on a tangent. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to HTML All the Things Podcast. This is Matt Lawrence and Mike Curran.
That's right, everybody. We are back. This is the HTML All the Things podcast. This episode is titled, possibly working title, but I think it's going to be titled, Can You Have a Career in Web Development? Now, that's going to sound silly. People are going to be like, I have a career, I'm in a job, whatever. But there's been a lot of questions. There's been a lot of elephants in the room, if you will. There's been a lot of existential, I want to say, crises, or people talking about some existential crises for the industry, which is, hey, is web development really a viable career anymore? Now, this is going to sound like, you guys have talked about this, and we have, and this episode's going to get weird. At least I think it's weird. The reason why it's going to get weird is I'm going to lay out and discuss a Reddit thread that I read and kind of like touch on some of the comments and things like that. Link will, of course, be in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. But also, I have some discussion topics about how are online distractions the answer to our career issues, to the job market issue? Sounds weird, and it is, and I'll get into it when we get there. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to support the show, you can go and check us out on that Patreon, leave a review or rating on your podcast app, join us in our Discord server, or share this with your friends. And just a reminder that this episode is powered by Code Rabbit. If you want to get some AI code reviews in your workflow, you can cut code review time and bugs in half instantly. Go and check it out, coderabbit.ai. There's a 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and a 2-click sign up if you have a GitHub or GitLab account set up. And also, if you want to let them know that we sent you, there will be a special link. It is not an affiliate link. Just lets them know that we sent you in the show description and in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. And also, I guess we can do this now too. If you want to learn how to code, you can also go and check out Scrimba. That's scrimba.com/link/htmlallthethings. That is an affiliate link, but it gives you up to 20% off a Scrimba plan. Go and check that out if you want to learn how to code with their interactive media player code editor. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce this episode. So I've been talking a bit, and I'm going to keep talking a bit, but don't worry, I'll let Mike talk. I'm not just going to be talking at you, but I do want to establish this episode because, like I said, it is a little bit weird. So my idea for this episode started when I was a boy. No, my idea for this episode started with the thought that I wanted to tackle what was roughly titled at the time, the biggest career questions of web developers in 2025. And I thought we would tackle the elephants in the room, AI being one of them, complexity being one of them, the sort of variety of jobs you could get. Like, some people hate WordPress, some people love WordPress, they have full businesses on there, things like that. Should you be transitioning to like app development for desktops or for mobile phones, things like that? And I was going to try to kind of gather those questions, and maybe I will in the future, but I did a little bit of research, and it quickly led me to a Reddit thread that really provoked my curiosity. And the title of this Reddit thread is web development worth it in 2025? It's by the user crystal_inks. Again, the link will be in the show notes on htmlallthethings.com. So I'm just going to read this. It's just a couple of paragraphs, but I'm going to read this. I am 29F, and I guess I will jump right into the point. I've been on Reddit just scrolling through and seeing that people with CS, which is computer science degrees, are even struggling to get jobs. I currently work in retail and always had a hard time trying to figure out what career I want to get into. I'm someone that loves art, but I don't make a living off my art, so I figured I could bridge the gap with art and tech, and figure web development is that option. So far, I am self-learning while I am also in community college learning web development and programming, getting an associate degree. However, seeing how the job market is and AI has gotten me worried about entering the field in hopes to get a job. I would like to get a front-end developer job, but I am willing to go full stack. I would just like to know people's opinions and maybe advice. That would be nice. I'm also trying to work on my portfolio. So far, I just made a simple website about myself. I do plan to work on more projects. And then I'm just going to read one more thing, and it is shorter, but the first comment kind of had me thinking, and it says it's from a Joseph Haben. Hopefully, I've said that correctly. He says, "Here's my story. I have my CS degree from UCI, which I finished in 2 years. I have one YOE at a Fortune 500, got laid off twice, but combined both on my resume to look like one straight year at the age of 21, plus one good internship, plus a startup with 10K in profit. Nothing crazy, not an Ivy Fang or 100K plus startup like some people, but nothing to scoff at in any way at 21 years of age. I have applied to 1,000 jobs from SWE to QA analyst and have gotten nothing. None were easy applies. Four of my other laid off coworkers, nothing. I'm not doing another startup because it was very stressful, not my type of thing, and not worth the risk right now with my mental health. 2 weeks ago, I started selling pixel art for video games. Yes, you heard that right. Pixel art for video games. That has put more food on the table for me than SWE has the past couple of months. Pixel art for video games. And this comment got me thinking. This person is not just working in software development, this person is making money online. And I'm not going to read all the comments, but just the brief sentiment on what a lot of people are saying. Some people are saying you really should be exploring other trades. And this is just, again, commenting in general. I'm just summarizing all the kind of comments. There's a big tree of them, which you can read on Reddit. But they're saying, hey, maybe explore the trades, like become an electrician, become a plumber. A lot of people I saw were like, hey, maybe try healthcare, other less saturated fields, because the web dev industry has a lot of low barrier to entry entrances, such as boot camps and other things like that, self-taught and things. And unfortunately, because of this low barrier to entry, the job market is just way too saturated. And then they also say, of course, the classic now AI tools are increasingly capable of handling front end tasks, reducing the demand for junior devs. And then to talk to the original poster's art direction, some comments suggest pivoting to UI/UX design or graphic design to better align with her artistic interests, because modern web development is less artsy now and more focused on full stack and back end skills. And so there's a bunch of other things, in this thread. You can read through it yourself. I'm not going to keep boring you with things like that. But I want to discuss a couple of things, and I'll just touch on both of them now, and then I'll let Mike talk there as well. And that is, it is clear, I would say, from this Reddit thread that those who are laser focused, skilled, and interview well will still be able to get into this industry. But that's largely the case even in like a recession type of deal. Obviously there's exceptions to everything, but in general, if you're like laser focused, like I am a web developer, you can do it. It's easier said than done, but you can likely do it. But this does play on the trope that we've talked about on this show before, where not all web developers identify as web developers outside of the working hours. They're a web developer for their job, and then they're like a snowboarder or a golfer or like a TV movie reviewer or like whatever, right? They like watching movies, they like doing these other things. And so these individuals who are not super in the game are going to likely struggle because they're going to have to dedicate so much time and effort into the job search. And as a final note, because the other online distractions thing is coming, and we'll kind of conclude the episode with that. It'll be a long discussion though, I'm sure. But I just want to say that, I know already people are probably already typing and saying, you know what, like, this is the industry and like, all this kind of elitist stuff, right? Where it's like, and they're not necessarily wrong. If you want to get, kind of break through and you want to, make your money, you need to be an adult about your career. You should be working 100 hours and you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And you're going to hear that a bunch. But unfortunately, like that is going to be a struggle for some people. And I'll say it now, it would be a real big struggle for me because, I like making websites and messing around with tech, but I'm mostly in tech for the tech side of things. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, websites are the absolute best thing ever. They're really cool. They do a lot of cool things. I really like working with them. But if I was like also like I used to work at BlackBerry, I used to like cell phones, right? It's like I just like tech kind of in general. So Mike, like what do you think about this first kind of discussion topic of like, kind of the not the barrier to entry to get into the field and call yourself a web developer, like we've already discussed it being low, but more like trying to get into a job now with the current kind of situation that we find ourselves in.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot to unpack. Essentially, first thing I want to address the people that are reading posts like this and getting depressed about it. This happens a lot. These cycles of low, like harder job markets happen all the time. And the reality is that a lot of negativity is the stuff that surfaces. And that's the stuff that we see a lot in the subreddits, especially. People go to Reddit to complain. So the reason that you're seeing a lot of negativity in these posts is because you're kind of centralizing all the people that are complaining in one spot. And of course, they're going to give their bias in these posts because they are going through the same thing as the original poster, right? As OP. So I want you to take anything that you see as like a big negative wave with a really big grain of salt. Because a lot of people, the people that are actually succeeding and getting jobs, are not going on Reddit and complaining and not going on Reddit and giving positive experiences either because they're focused on their job now. They did it. They don't care about Reddit. They don't care about these CS subreddits. The CS subreddits, like the CS career questions, are mostly filled with people looking for jobs. That's the reality. And some sprinkle of people that are like trying to help and stuff like that. But reality is that mostly their people are there for the intention of trying to find a job. And therefore they are very much biased in like not finding a job, obviously. So that's one really, really important take that I want everyone to kind of understand from the get-go in when they're going through and trying to find a job and looking at stuff is there's the scary stories of 1,000 applications and not getting a job are always going to surface to the top because people want to pretend that they're not part of they're part of the same exact ecosystem when reality is somewhere in between. Yes, the job market is harder, so we're seeing more of these stories come up, but that doesn't mean the job market is impossible. There's many ways that you can pivot and get in, right? So the discussion question where like, is the job market super hard right now, essentially, to get into a job? I think it depends on how you frame it. In certain situations, like this, the original poster said, hey, I want a job as a front-end developer. That has become increasingly hard. I can agree with that. If you want to be a super specialized front-end developer in the web development space that only focuses on, for instance, HTML and CSS and a little bit of JavaScript, that reality is becoming less and less likely because the demand for what you need to do as a web developer these days has become a lot higher. And it's not just because of the AI tools, like some people might think. It's just because the reality of what the web can do has become a lot more, right? From the days of like front-end web development, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, there wasn't this many web apps. There wasn't this much functionality on the web. There wasn't these offline first applications. There wasn't all these dashboards. Like a lot of stuff that the web could do has been defined in the last 5, 6 years. And therefore, the jobs that are being available are for doing harder things on the web. And if you pigeonhole yourself as someone that's only a front-end developer, you don't want to touch the back end, or you don't want to touch JavaScript in any meaningful way, and you don't want to touch DevOps, and you don't want to touch this and that and this, et cetera, et cetera. Like if you're going to go at it from a perspective of, I don't want to do this part of the job, that's where you're going to go lead to failure. That's the reality of it. You have to find a way to complete an assignment. Like you're given a job, you're given a task, and regardless of the technologies you need to use, you need to get from 0 to 1 for that task. Okay. If that requires you to use more back end than front end, you have to do that. If that requires more front end than back end, sure, great, you do that. But it depends on the task, and you can't pigeonhole yourself into front end web developer. That, in my opinion, those days are over. What you need to do is, yes, full stack is important, but you also need to find where the demand is right now. It changes on a month-to-month basis or on a year-to-year basis. And the reality is demand right now is actually for multiple different things. It's for there's a lot of back-end demand that I've been seeing. So having a good understanding of the back end will help you nowadays. The other thing is like learning all this AI stuff, learning what AI orchestration is, learning the stuff that companies are actively trying to implement into their systems at this very moment.
Right.
Being on the edge of that is going to help you break into the industry. because the companies are trying to look for people that know how to do this stuff, right? So if you could prove that with a functioning projects, if you can prove that if you're in a job right now and you're able to take a step into learning that so you can put it on your resume, all of those things are going to help you move down the line, because you're pushing yourself to the point where like you're doing kind of the bleeding edge, the cutting edge thing, that it seems to be the thing that is becoming more and more popular. And that's gonna, like, if you're listening to this a year from now, this might change. Whatever that
Right.
cutting edge thing that is as popular might change. It might become something completely different. You need to stay on top of that and find where you can plug yourself in to be the best solutions architect you can. That's, I think, we talk about the solutions architecture or the solutions engineer a lot on the show. It's because that's what you should be aiming to be. You should be aiming to be the person that can solve a problem. Don't worry about what tech you need to use. Don't worry about whatever. Like, find the market that is there right now that will allow you to be the biggest benefit for a company to solve a problem. If that's full stack web development, that's full stack web development. If that's backend, that's backend, whatever. That's what you need to focus on, in my opinion.
Well, there's one thing that really stood out to me in your conversation there, and that is like talking about how many of the people that are getting jobs and things like that are likely not posting on social media. And the thing is like I've had conversations with friends actually very recently, like just this week as a recording, where we've had conversations on like how there, like we have friends who obviously engage in social media in general, and then we have friends who don't engage with it either at all or virtually not at all. Those people who do not engage with it at all have completely different conversations with us. Like they're still able to talk to us, but like we'll be talking about like trends and things that's going on, and not even just web development, right? Like just goofy things on TikTok, weird, dances or whatever, right? Like whatever happens on TikTok, the trends, the viral things, the clips, the news that ends up getting picked up and like tossed around and becomes like what seems like a huge story, but that maybe the person that doesn't involve themselves with social media does read the news and hasn't even heard about that story. It's like it's almost like another whole world is what I'm getting at on social media. It feels like if it feels like there's an online world and there's a real world and there's a bridge, but they're not together. I think that if you're, at least for me anyway, when I'm on social media, I feel like it is combined with the real world. When it's almost like there's like two planets. If we were to talk figuratively, it's like you have your online sort of planet, your like social media planet, and then you have like your real life planet, like the physical world where we live in. And there's like bridge, but they're not together. And when I'm on social media, I feel like they're together and they're not. They're two separate. There's just one bridge. So stuff goes in and out. Yeah, people share clips and things, but there's a lot of people that do not engage with social media. And I feel like and I don't know if that's good or bad, whatever, right? Not a psychologist, I don't know. But my point is like I think Mike is right in that, I mean, if there's millions of computer science engineers, there would be millions of threads and probably thousands a day if everybody was like, I'm going to go post on social media. Many of those thousands and thousands would choose Reddit, and there would be probably thousands a day on single popular subreddits talking about jobs. And like, obviously, there's a lot, but not thousands. At least not in the subreddits that I've seen, and not in the threads that I've seen, or the string of comments, or you want to call it the wall, whatever you want to say. But the point is like there's a lot going on that is not going on online. And that does feel particularly weird when we're web developers. So you'd be like, well, like, we're on the web. It's like, yeah, but you have to remember, like, the web is a tool. At the end of the day, if you were like, I'm uninstalling Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, you didn't suddenly lose all your skills, and you didn't suddenly lose your ability to search up things, and you didn't suddenly lose your ability to text a friend or text your boss or call somebody. But yet a lot of our device time and a lot of our, at least me, a lot of my mindset does come from social media. Now we're obviously marketing this podcast, we're marketing ourselves, things like that. So part of it's a professional relationship, and so we kind of like have to be on there. But like again, like I do find myself like, especially if I'm sick, like if I'm bedridden, just sick, I'll be on TikTok for 4 hours and it feels like it's been half an hour. And so it's like a different it's I don't know what it's doing to the brain, whatever. The point is that there's a lot of people out there that are not going to be huge on the socials, that are getting jobs, that are finding niches, that are going through job postings, that maybe only use one social media network like LinkedIn or something, where they're specifically trying to get a job, or they just use Facebook just to like message people like their connections and things like that. And I think it's very easy to A, not realize it, or B, like get caught up in social media and just think that, okay, because there's 10 Reddit threads that say everything's gloom and doom, everything must be gloom and doom. And I will say this, it's an indicator. It certainly is an indicator, especially an early indicator sometimes where the news hasn't picked up on the fact that, maybe this job market sucks. So like the big news networks and things. But obviously, if you start having a trend on social media of everyone saying, okay, computer science roles, engineering roles, software development roles, web developer roles are doing bad, like it's an early indicator and not a definitive thing, but it's an early indicator that, hey, this might be in trouble. And then the mainstream news may pick up on it eventually. Right. So it's what I'm trying to get at is it's two separate worlds, but it is still useful to go on these social things and read about people's experience and read about what people suggest and things like that, of course. And it's obviously, I mean, it's obviously like a moneymaker, like for people, right? Like social media obviously makes Reddit, because Reddit owns Reddit. It makes them money. Meta has your Facebooks and things like that, and they want you on their networks for as long as possible. And so they're trying to like, hey, I'm gonna go and log in really quick and see if I can talk to my friend. Oh, that's a funny picture of a cat. Oh, I'm now in the real string. Well, what if I swipe up? Oh, that's funny, whatever. And so it's easy. My point is, it's easy to get stuck in that soup. Very easy. Even if you have like like you're like, oh, I don't want to scroll. I just want to talk to, a prospective hiring, like someone who's possibly hiring. It's very easy to get scooped up, and then because you spend so much time in it, it feels like a dominant force. And in the real world, like it doesn't necessarily have to be. There's like Mike said, there's tons of people getting jobs. There's tons of people that just got laid off, and they just go, okay, and they just start the job search again. Get the resume or the CV out, get your cover letters out, start applying, maybe leverage a few connections. They don't go on and immediately like, go and be like, I was just laid off, and they write a big thread on Reddit. There's a lot of people that will not do that.
I would say the majority. The majority of people won't do that. So if you're seeing a lot, that means that there's quite a bit of people that are doing it. And that, like you said, it's a good way to indicate trend. But again, my worry is that people take what they see as face value across the industry, and they apply this little subset of people as the thing that defines an industry.
Yeah.
And that's hardly ever the case. And I would say almost always there's ways around it. And what I like to do a lot of times is when I see people on Reddit specifically in some sort of shape or form really going one direction, I start taking a look at what that other direction means, and if there's anywhere you could profit or anywhere you can get in that other direction. And like, again, in the web development space, in this particular story, what I was trying to say is like, you see a lot of people negatively talking about it. Look at what they're talking about. CS degree, right? Like that's very common, being thrown out as like the thing that people shouldn't get or whatever. Okay. People are talking about, oh, I tried to get these traditional roles in like regular in FANG companies. Okay, so maybe there's a trend there, but what
Mhm.
are they not saying? Like, oh, did they apply to the right startups? Maybe there's roles in startups that are there. Did they apply to government jobs? Did they apply to bank jobs? Or are they only looking for tech jobs? Are they applying to like automakers that still need software developers? Like, are they really applying to the things to the industries where this wouldn't be as impacted? Right? Like the industries that are severely impacted are probably the tech industries themselves. But
Right.
there's plenty of industries that aren't as impacted by a lot of this stuff, like the banking industry, like all those, that still need developers. And that might be a blind spot. Like if you're not seeing people mention that, then maybe you should look at it. Right? Like you could find the blind spots by seeing what's not being mentioned. And a lot of times that can give you the advantage. So there is value in looking at the negative posts, but it's not what you think. It's not the value of like, oh, I'm seeing the negative, so like I can just relate to it. No, it's where can I differentiate from these people? It's like
Well, the thing too
where did
is
they go
like I
wrong? Mhm.
like I know people that work in a college currently, and there's a huge, I mean, I don't know how big it is. I shouldn't say that, but it's definitely a few people at the very least in a web development department. And I don't mean a web development department in a college teaching or learning. I mean, they're keeping their website running. and they have like a huge content plan. They have multiple content strategists. They have, as far as I understand, like a roadmap and things like that. And they value their website. And in order for you to get value out of your website, you need to, have people behind a strategy and then implement that strategy, content strategy, technical SEO changes, things like that, design changes down the road, or as you do things, you have to be prepared for like, hey, soccer's coming up. Maybe we're going to do online registrations. We better have that form up quickly. Like there's always something to do, is my point. But yet, like, it's a college. It has a physical presence. Like to me, I would always think, well, like their website is important-ish, but I wouldn't be surprised if they just outsource it and they don't really care that much about it. But in this case, that's not the case. And like Mike said, like looking for the opportunity. It's like, hey, like that's an opportunity. Because like I said, I know people that are content writers and like content plan, SEO, whatever, all that, whatever the formal title is, they work there and they've worked there for a while. And they talk about the developers that work there and things like that. And it's like, oh, okay, like there's like a bit of a hierarchy there. Like, not that I have all the information, but that's an opportunity where I would always think like, no, the brick and mortar of the college and like the name of the college, having been in Canada for a number of years, would immediately just like that's all the marketing that they need, right? Maybe some billboards for like, hey, register for like winter classes or whatever, get your night class going, things like that. Like obviously there's like more traditional marketing things. That's what I always assumed what they would do. I would never think they would give a care about their website, and like that's one of, I'm sure, many 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 examples. Like there's no FANG, like that's not a FANG company, that's not a tech company at all.
That's exactly it. And there's tons of those examples, and there's tons of different strategies for getting in. And like, again, we've talked about this a million times, but networking, if you're just focusing on applying, that should really be like, if you've applied to 300, 400 jobs and haven't gotten a call back, like that's a lot. There's a lot of indicators there that maybe your resume isn't in the right shape. Maybe you're not like catering it properly. Maybe you're not asking the right people. Like, are you networking enough? There's just a lot of other things you can be doing rather than just sitting there and filling out applications that have just as much or even a greater chance of landing you a job. I'm not saying don't apply. I think you should definitely apply. I just think you need to break up your search into different verticals and really split up your days based on those verticals so that you don't burn out from applications. Like filling out applications is the most, if not like the one of the worst tedious jobs you can ever have.
Super tedious.
Yeah,
Holy
if you
crap.
do that every day, 8 hours a day, so like some people do, like you're going to burn out of the industry just from filling out applications, just because you're going to be jaded. And I wouldn't blame you, because that sounds awful, absolutely
Yeah.
awful. But if you have, maybe a couple hours a day at doing that, that's a little bit more manageable. And then the rest of the time you're building something, you're talking to people in open source, you're going to networking events, you're doing other things that benefits your job search. That, in my opinion, is much more productive. And again, it increases your chances more than just cold applying. Like when you're going to apply to a company, if you have a contact at that company in any way, shape, or form, and you reach out to that contact before you said apply, or even after you said apply, and you let them know like, hey, we spoke at this event. It was really great meeting you. Like, it's a LinkedIn contact, whatever. And I've just applied for a role at your company. Would love for a referral from you. Like, that would be so awesome. That is a huge benefit to you, because you don't know, like they might have a referral bonus inside the company, and the guy might, like, they might be stoked to refer you.
Yeah.
Right. And they talk to you like, oh yeah, well, I'll refer you, no problem. And then boom, like you have an in that company. So again, you never know where these connections can lead, and you never know where that a little bit of extra effort in terms of just, not being heads down applying all the time could take you. So on the application side of things, there's like a million ways you can get in. And this applies not only to web development, by the way. This applies to any career that you want to go down, finance, business, like whatever. Like if you want the right jobs, hardly ever is that going to be applying, unless you're like the top of a class at Stanford or whatever. Like that, it changes things a little bit there. But like if you're just, regular college grad from a regular school, then a lot of it will rely on who you know and how you can use that network to your benefit, and how you can, find ways around the corporate structure, like find ways around this typical, like, I've applied 1,000 times and I didn't get anywhere. Like if I applied 1,000 to 1,000 applications, like I think 100 or 200 in, I would know something was severely wrong with my methods, and I would change them severely. And then I would apply, instead of 1,000, I should be applying to way, way less. but maybe raising the quality of the applications or something like that.
It feels like we almost need like training on how to apply to jobs like in a modern sense. Like I remember going through a bunch of like career cruising and things like that in high school, college, and even some elementary school where they were kind of like slowly teaching us, and it was very like traditional, CV/resume, cover letter, and maybe some other things, and then Monster came on the scene, and Monster was like, "Oh, get a job, this and that, whatever." And then like Indeed comes on the scene, and like I don't have a comprehensive list of all these like all these revolutions in the job applying market, but there's a reason why like in cities and towns we have a lot of job centers that have popped up where people are like, hey, these are employment assistance centers, whatever you want to call them, whatever your jurisdiction calls them, and you can go in there and they'll help you with the resume, they'll help you apply online, they'll help you like change how you apply to things. And it like I think to me it's almost like we we as developers for it, rightly so, worry about upgrading our knowledge on the actual tech, but you don't think of, and I'm sure a lot of other careers don't think of, and like I mean I just started thinking of it now, the ways that you apply. Like it's like we don't upgrade our upgrade/update our knowledge on how we apply to things. Like back in the day it's like we couldn't just quickly ping the founder of a startup on LinkedIn if they had that open to us. Like that wasn't a thing. It was like, no, you have to send a letter in and it has to go through HR and this and that. Like the times have changed. And like you mentioned, Mike, the social media and the connections and things like that. Like times have certainly changed. And I feel like maybe one of the big takeaways from this episode right now is that we as like not even just web developers, as employees or people looking to be hired, need to almost like take a look at what we're doing to apply, and maybe just, and it's not going to take long. It's like it's not going to be like drastically different than the old way, but just maybe give it a kind of get a bit of a refresher. Maybe go to one of those like job help centers if it's free or reasonably priced and be like, yo, what do I do? And it's like, oh, maybe I can just put my name in a pool, and this other, maybe this recruitment agency is great, look at the numbers or whatever. Maybe I should be doing this. Oh, like I'll like I know that like my dad had to, years ago he was like applying for a job, and like he hadn't had to apply for a job forever, and then his work unfortunately shut down, like the whole place shut down. And so he, this was in the days of like I think his dad got him into his job. And so it's like he wasn't used to resumes and cover letters, and heck, he didn't know really email and things. And so like I helped him a bit, but then to get like kind of comprehensive and like a few times a week help on a more regular basis, he would go to like a career place and they like set him up with a nice professional email, got him all set up, figured out how to use a calendar, online, how to check things like that, how to like email back, where to apply to things, how to fill in online forms. And like that's huge. Like that's an example right there. And it's like we probably need that too. Where like, oh, I understand that we can take a resume and make it digital and send it over email, but like what are the other steps? Like maybe pinging people, trying to find connections. The list goes on. I've already said it, but I think maybe like that's maybe what some people, not everybody, but some people are missing. Because like in these challenging times, having a very efficient and effective, for that matter, hiring or applying, I guess, process is going to help you, right? Because if Mike says if you're only taking like certain verticals of your day, if you're taking like 2 hours a day, well, it'd be pretty good if you were able to effectively apply to 10 places versus moderately effectively apply to 5, things like that. But I think we've covered this. It's now on to the weird part of the episode. This is the weird thing that like I thought of, and I like seriously want to have a conversation. I almost want to try this. Not that I'm looking for a job right now, but it's like I want to try this in a way. And the question is, are online distractions the answer? Online distractions meaning making money online. Now, this is going to be like, oh my God, Matt's into the scams. That's not what I'm talking about. So as an entrepreneur, as a freelancer, agency owner, self-taught developer, that's me, right? That's Mike as well. We've been constantly distracted by making money online methods. There's like a million methods out there. Many are scams, many are legit. The list goes on. Obviously, people are making money online. And we, as web developers, not just Mike and I, as like the collective, web developers, web designers, we have an understanding on how websites work and how to build them from the ground up. So we actually have a unique edge in the online money making space. At least I think we do. So my question really here is, instead of working for people that are making money online, why don't we keep the investment that we've put into ourselves, which is the investment of, we've learned how to learn how servers work, we've learned web development, we've learned how to get things working and things like that, and keep that invested time relevant, instead of trying to switch jobs like the Reddit, like some of the Reddit comments suggested, like going to plumber, where it's like, you're not using web development skills, like you can toss all that in the garbage, all that time is gone, now you're becoming a plumber. What if we say, I want to keep my skills relevant and I actually want to stay in this industry, and because I have these skills, I actually have an edge on whatever I choose to make money online with. So the distractions, or what used to be distractions, are those now a solution or a potential solution to our problem? Like I was talking to Mike, and just like metaphorically speaking, we're kind of like the gods of the online world in a way, right? Like we understand the foundational, I don't know if gods is the right word to say,
Yeah,
but you
yeah,
know what
I
I'm
would
trying
say
to,
I would say that, yeah, and by we you're also referring to web developers, not like we as in you and I.
correct.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
that's
saying
what I
that
was
like
thinking.
we are, and I'm speaking metaphorically. I'm not trying to step on any religious toes. What I'm trying to say is, metaphorically speaking, like we create, maintain, and continue to iterate the online world. And obviously, like some of us are skilled in some areas and some of them aren't in there. And like I've talked about my skill holes and Mike's talked about his and things like that. And so like together, I'm talking about as a collective, like we make things online for the people that make money online. Why don't we become the people that we are the ones making the money online, and we have the unique edge of, hey, I don't need to go to, if I'm completely unskilled in web development, I don't have to go to a no code tool and then pay per month for that, and then pay per month for 8, 9, 10, 12, 20, 50 plugins and different services to get everything to work for me. I can go in and be like, oh, like this thing doesn't allow me to change the color, but like I'm just going to do it in custom code, as a simple example. So now I don't have to buy the custom plugin, the customizer plugin or whatever. I can just do it myself. So like we have those powers, right? So I don't know. Like again, this is, like I said, this is getting weird. It's an interesting question, I think, and it's like I mean, side hustles are a thing for a reason, and like why don't we take over this this space? I guess.
So I think this is a fantastic question. I think we've talked about it a little bit on previous podcast episodes, but essentially this comes down to many different areas. So one of them is that the reason that a lot of people get into a startup idea or like an app or something like that is because they found a hole in a market somewhere that they're familiar with,
Sure.
right? And they don't have the skills to fix that hole, so they go and hire a developer. And the reason that they know that hole is because they do other things outside of web development that aren't related, and they're only doing that, and then they've delved so far into it that they've realized this issue, right? So like maybe they're plumbers, but they've realized that, you know, the logistics situation of plumbing to get this type of pipe and this type of ratchet, whatever, like those logistic issues are really screwy on the plumbing side.
Sure.
And they're like, well, how do I fix that? Like, I understand that maybe I need to like set up some service that can connect these two things, but I can't do that. So I'll go out and get a web developer to do that. So they have the solution to a problem in terms of like the theory of it. They have the audience because they have the plumbers that they know that they can test it with. So that's a lot of where these small little niche startups go. Obviously, plumbing is just like an example, and there's like a lot of millions of others. And that's where it's hard for a traditional web developer that knows how to do this stuff to find those problems to solve, because they are in their zone. Like we are in web development. We know the
Sure.
problems of web developers, sure. And so what we would need to do is find the problems that web developers are having and try to solve them. The issue there is that a lot of web developers have the capabilities to solve those problems. So we're kind of fighting ourselves in the same space. Whereas if we were finding, If we were solving problems for plumbers, that is a whole other area of people that can't solve their own problems for the most part.
Right.
And therefore we have an easier way of contributing to that solution and without as much competition, right?
And
So
we don't have the insights into the plumbing.
correct. We don't have the insights into the plumbing. And that's why as web developers, we can't solve those issues without the plumber. And so you need both. You need the entrepreneur, which is the plumber, and you need the web developer, which is the employee, to be able to solve that one issue. So that's one thing. That's one reason why it's hard to do this. Okay, because again, we're in the web development space. We only know web development. Now, this becomes easier when you have hobbies outside of web development that you go into and you find areas and hobbies that need help, and you can build services around those areas. People do that all the time. That happens. Sure, that's a great way to make money, and people do make money. But the other problem is that being an entrepreneur or being someone that even just tries to do these side hustles or make money online is a whole other skill set outside of web development, right? It's not really in the same scope. So people that are good at web development aren't necessarily, or I don't think there is much correlation between a good web developer and a good person that can sell stuff online. Like, I don't think that those things really have much of a Venn diagram, honestly. I think there's some people that can do it and some people that like to do it and some people that don't like to do it. And the only way to find out if you like it or not like it is probably to try it and see. Like, very good example. One of the commenter in that post that you talked about, the Reddit post, he mentioned that he had a startup, 10K, right? Like, they made 10K on the startup, but he hated every minute of it. Like, it was stressful on his
Stressful, yeah.
stressful and stuff like that. And it's absolutely stressful because when you're the owner of the product and you're trying to sell it to people, especially if they're paying good money for it, and like 10K, I don't know how many users he had, but 10K is quite it's money. They're going to demand a lot, right? And you're not talking about people like, a manager demanding something from you because you have set work hours and stuff like that, so you can just turn that off. You're talking about a customer demanding something from you. And if you've ever been a customer, think about what you want as a response. A lot of times
Sure.
it's an immediate response.
Yeah.
And so therefore you're never really off when you're a entrepreneur, when you're a startup owner, you're never off. You take a vacation, you bring your laptop with you. If you can even take a vacation for the first 5 years, depending on how successful the startup is, and like the more success you have, it's almost as the worse it is for your balance. And so people that value that balance, for the most part, will struggle with the idea of being successful in that space. It's not a blanket statement. I want to make that clear. There are exceptions to that rule. Like, you can have these little hobby startups that are very, very passive and stuff like that. I just think that those are very rare. A lot of times to get to that point, there's still probably a lot of grind that people had to do. So again, I think the distractions are the answer to some people. To kind of summarize my point here, for sure, the distractions are the answer to some web developers out there, and there will be a lot of web developers that transition from regular, and this continues to happen. It happens all the time where you see a web developer, get out of a startup and then start their own startup. It happens all the time, and that will continue to happen. But the reality is that that's still going to be a very small percentage due to these limitations of like whether they know what they can solve, and the second thing is that if they have the skill set or the want to even get there.
Well, the one thing I was thinking of too, and this is a combination of that first comment, which is why I mentioned it specifically in the beginning of the episode, was talking about how, they went to software engineering, things like that. You mentioned the startup, but then they started making money selling pixel art for video games. And like, that's it's a tech related, but not web development related or software engineering related thing. Although it kind of is, because software engineers will then use it in a game, but like their role in it is very artistic and very much like, the drawing and the composition of the pixel art. And what I find really interesting is web developers are like exposed to a lot of fields. So especially if you're like running an agency like you and I are, it's like I'm now exposed to how like retirement homes work and how driving schools operate and how like hatcheries work and how all these other things work. And you're probably thinking like, Matt, what the heck are you talking about? And it's because we've had clients in these sectors. And I'm not an expert in, driving schools or what have you, but I'm certainly exposed to it. And if I have another client that's a driving school, I'm going to be able to talk shop, at the very least, bring up concerns and be like, hey, the last time this guy had issues booking like in-car lessons, how do you want to do it? These are the issues, because they can only, I'm making this up now, but it's like they can only drive between the hours of 9 and 5. That's an insider thing that no one else is going to know. Where they're like, oh, I guess, yeah, you're right, because like maybe, student drivers aren't in this jurisdiction, aren't allowed to drive at night or something, right? And so like those are like insider little bits of information. And so like what's interesting when I say that is that it's like web developers are like on the precipice of a lot of different industries, again, especially if they work in an agency where they're making websites for multiple people. And I feel like you're right in that we don't have a lot of deep insights into things, but we have a half decent jumping off point where you might be like, that driving school industry was kind of interesting. I wonder if they have any problems to solve, and maybe you have a connection now because you built a driving school website, and you can ask them, and maybe their booking software that they all use sucks, and you can make a new booking software, and that's insider information, and that's insider, need and problem solving, and entrepreneurial, hey, I'm going to solve a problem and charge money for solving someone's problem and things like that. And I feel like we're on the precipice of it, but you are correct in that, I mean, there's a lot of web developers that don't make websites for multiple people. There's a lot of web developers that make websites just for, they worked at one company, two companies, and they just make a web app, and they don't get any of the insights. I mean, I've mentioned it in the past, where like at BlackBerry one time, the guy who handled writing the driver for our VPN on the device didn't know where the VPN menu was in the settings. And I was like, what? And then it kind of dawned on me like, oh, that kind of makes sense, because he's dealing with the hardware. His world is the hardware. And we could likely take that guy and be like, you're not doing VPN drivers anymore. You're doing Wi-Fi. You're not doing that anymore. You're doing Bluetooth. You're not doing that anymore. You're doing the keyboard. And he could probably transition to that. Meanwhile, like if you asked me, who's more of an IT administrator role, hey, you gotta make the driver, I'd be like, make the driver? What are you talking about? Like at most I'd be able to interact with the driver, and even then I'd have to get spun up on that. And so there's so many like different worlds and so many different levels. And so like maybe like the answer here is like the online distractions may be an answer, but maybe they're an answer just to some people. Because there's such an array. Like we were talking about, Mike, like you and I've been talking about, I've been building out a website for a client, and there is a hole in a stack I'm using on WordPress that is driving me up the wall. Like we have 3 professional level, like paid for plugins, and there is no plugin, no free plugin. I don't want to say that. Like I think there's a plugin that like fixes it, but it fixes like 800 issues. And the hole that I'm talking about, I'm intentionally being vague because I kind of want to solve the problem and then share it with you guys later if I can. Just kind of playing with the idea. But the point is it's like this hole is so freaking obvious to me. It's like one of those things where like you go do it, like, oh, I need to set this setting, and it's like, oh, that setting doesn't exist. Like, what are you talking about? And it's like, what? Like, this is like the second or third step of like a multi-step thing that I'm building out for this person. And it's like, oh yeah, that doesn't exist. You had to get like another paid plugin. And it's like, I got 3 paid plugins. I'm not paying for another plugin that solves 900 things. I got to pay per month or per year for this thing, and I'm going to use one of like 900 of its features. Like, are you kidding me? Like this is where the limitation of 3 paid plugins goes. And I'm not trying to diss those plugins. Obviously, all of them, I'm sure, are doing 900 things. The point of the matter is, though, is like that is a very different web developer experience dealing with WordPress and finding holes like that in what is effectively really no code tools. I did a lot of server admin. I got their website working properly. I got their email working properly from the server perspective, and then I had to like back up some super old system. That's all server admin. And then I had to go and like put in the WordPress and things like that. And so it's like now it's starting to get a little web devy, but it's also a bit no code, right? And it's like that thing that I just said, that project that I just described, is a far cry from someone else that goes, I've always worked on web apps. We can both call ourselves web developers. We can both call ourselves to an extent maybe not sysadmin, but DevOps or what have you. Like we have server experience largely, but at the same time, it's like they wouldn't know what the heck. Like I know how to go in there and be like, okay, like this is how the server's giving me these errors. I need to change this. I know that if I upgrade this, which I need to, it's going to give me this error. So I have to have a fallback. There's going to be people that make web apps are going to be like, what are you talking about? And in fact, we've had guests on this show in the past where I've like brought up concerns about traffic and load balancing. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'll be like, the networking, like you're going to overrun the router or something. I don't remember the specific situation, but I do remember situations like it. And we've mentioned it. And they'll be like, what are you talking about the router? And it's like, well, we're sending data. Like, what? And then it dawns on me like, oh, like Mike and I have networking experience, like hooking up enterprise level network switches and routers and things like that. And that's so close to web development, but it's just not quite there. And so maybe like many things in life, the answer is somewhere in the gray area where some people are going to be able to seize the online distractions. They're going to have a distraction that they have insight into. They're going to realize that they're going to be able to like take it on and fix it. I mean, I'll give an example. Like I'm learning to golf, said it a million times. I've completely redone my learning right now, and every of how I'm learning and things like that, how I'm learning the sport, and I've been having some success with it. And every single one of the influencers that I follow on YouTube like have a website and have a custom online course thing that's, $200 a year or whatever it is that you can sign up for. And I'm pretty sure at least one or two of them are custom code. Like I've never seen these things before. Maybe they are like a no code platform that allows you to have a course. But the person that's teaching the golf is not a web developer. That's the entrepreneur, like Mike said. But it's like, I mean, I'm learning to golf. Could I eventually become an online instructor from a technical perspective? Like maybe it would be unsuccessful from a marketing perspective, but like I could start a platform for myself, start filming videos, getting those videos onto the platform, having lesson plans and having all that handled by a web app that I made, using no-code tools when possible, making entrepreneurial decisions on, do I spend time developing this or do I develop my content more right now and use a no-code tool, and then maybe in the future I can drop that license fee and start coding, right? Like those are those advantages, those high-level advantages like I was talking about, where like someone who is just the golf instructor would not know to do that. They're just going to be like, they're just going to Google like custom like golf online course, and there's going to be a solution for them somewhere where someone's going to be talking about it, or maybe there's already an all-in-one solution. They're going to sign up for a platform or two, or they're going to contact a developer, and that's what they're going to do. And like those are the steps that like we wouldn't need to take. But then again, it's like how would we have the insights into what to teach for golf like, if you don't golf? It's super interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some arguments to be made that having the knowledge for us might deter us from success in some way, shape, or form. So, for example, the golf example. The people you're competing with, for the most part, are golfers that spend most of their time perfecting their craft, not only from like a golf perspective, but from a teaching perspective, from a content perspective. They're focused on the marketing side of things. They're focused on the golf videos. They're focused on being better golfers. Whereas someone like us, let's say that you come in and you want to compete with these people. And instead of hiring someone because you have the skills of the web developer skills, you want to build it out yourself, right? Well, now you're spread so thin across the web development side of things. So like creating the actual platform and everything, plus all the other things,
Oh, bloody point.
You're stretching yourself thinner than the other competitors, and they have an advantage over you because they're able to focus more on the content and focus more on the actual stuff that people see versus the infrastructure and choosing which plugin to use. At the end of the day, to the end user, the people that are consuming the content, doesn't really matter. And so like I see this all the time with startup owners and stuff like that, and see like startup CEOs that I talk to. I notice themselves like they have their core competency, right? Like they have their whatever it is, the reason that they became a startup CEO, right? Whether it be development, like maybe they're really good developers. Like Mark Zuckerberg was a good developer at a time, right? But if he stayed in development and didn't branch out and learn how to be a CEO and actually manage stuff and give that away, he would have never reached where he is right now, right? Like right now, he probably can't develop or shit, in my opinion, because he just doesn't need to, and there's no reason for him to. He
He can
found his
kind of
core
talk shop, and
competency.
that's about it.
Exactly, yeah, and that's fine, and that's good. That probably benefits him. But for the most part, it doesn't matter because he found out how to manage people. He found out how to like whatever, good or bad. Like people, have their opinions on Mark Zuckerberg. He's built a billion, like multi-billion-dollar, potentially trillion-dollar empire now. Like I don't know how big it is, but he did the job as a CEO.
It's a big company.
It's a huge company, yeah. Like
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that like trying to stick to your like, oh, I was a developer or something like that in those cases might hinder you in some ways. That's just another kind of warning I would have for people. It's like I think it might be okay to get started with that here and there and like, lower the costs there, but overall you should find where your skills can be better put to use to increase your reach or increase the potential revenue of a product. And if it's not in development, you need to let that go and outsource that.
Right. Well, there's one other thing I was going to mention too is like you're saying, it's hard to get like you're going to stretch yourself too thin. And one thing, like I guess my kind of like closing note is or question really is web development, specifically like a web development career, is it realistically going to join the gig economy? So we're seeing a lot of people start side hustles online. Web developers are no exception, and it obviously expands outside of web developers. But the thing is like we do have, like I mentioned, we do have a lot of insights into things. And then you also mentioned that, you might spread yourself too thin. So that would lend itself to dabbling in multiple areas to make not a full-time income, but a supplementary income with maybe one plus side hustles. And then at that point, then you have to start like questioning, is this really kind of like the gig economy where people are just like quickly doing gigs, like the classic kind of gig economy, or not the classic, but the more modern gig economy thing is like people that are, oh, I'll pick up Uber for a couple hours. Oh, Uber's kind of cooling. It's dinner time. I'll pick up DoorDash. Then I'll start doing DoorDash for a bit. Okay, I did that. Maybe they're on like a handy person app and then they get called and be like, yo, can you like, change my light bulbs? Like they're way up there and I'm scared of ladders. It's like, okay, cool. I'll do that. And so this person is not a contractor, they're not a chef, and they're not a taxi driver. They're doing a bunch of gigs all over the place, across different markets, across different things. And so really a question it's like, especially with AI tools, I guess coming in is like and maybe this is even a question for another episode, but it's like, is the web development career going to gig out? I don't know if that's a way to say that, but like, is it going to become a bit of a gig economy?
I think it is a good question for another episode because I think it requires some thought. And I
Yeah.
think that's where I'll leave it because there's a lot of nuance to that question in terms of the technicality of how web development differs from driving a car with Uber and how it might not fit in that era. But there's a lot of thought of on the topic of AI that maybe you can get there. So I think it's a good idea to break it off into a separate episode if people are interested. Definitely let us know if that's something you want to hear at HTML Everything on X and at HTML Things on, all the other platforms. But yeah, I think it's a good ending point though, in my opinion. Like that's where we're at, where you have to continue to think about these kinds of things as you go through your career.
And honestly, it might be something you enjoy. Like you might be a person who's like worked in a web app thing, like a web app, like engineering team is what I mean. And you might be like, man, this is like pretty boring, but I do like the tech still. It's like maybe you are a person that wants to kind of do different gigs, maybe a little less stable, but you get a bit more exposure. And like Mike said, like I'll leave it there, but I think maybe that'll be my next episode that I can kind of compose because I'd like to kind of like figure out more talking points because I think that is interesting. The gig economy for web developers, like, is that the new career? Interesting. For tech, even in general, we could even bring that in or something. So yeah, like Mike said, talk to us on the socials if you're interested. Maybe even suggest topics for that episode or things you want covered or researched or something like that. And maybe in a few weeks, in terms of recording time, I'll come up with that episode and we'll talk about that. But I think that concludes this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a little bit weird. Online distractions, are they the answer to the web developer career? Who knows? But if you want to support episodes like this and keep us in the podcasting career, you can do so via patreon.com/HTML all the things. Check out the tiers and give that a go. Many thanks to our $3 tier patrons: Tim from the Web Hacker on thewebhacker.com, Jason from Geek Life Radio via geekliferadio.com, Garrett Segal, Level Up Financial Planning via www.levelupfinancialplanning.com, Magnus from YesWeb via yesweb.se, Syntaxify from the HTML All the Things Discord server, and Stacy Mosteler from the website swoonworthydesigns.com. And remember that this episode was powered, and indeed is powered by AI code reviews on Code Rabbit. Go check out their website, coderabbit.ai. You can cut your code review time and bugs in half instantly. Supercharge your team to ship faster with the most advanced AI code reviews. Go on their website and check out that 14-day free trial, no credit card needed, and just a 2-click sign up with GitHub or GitLab. Go and check that out, or click the link in the show description or in the show notes if you want to let them know that we sent you, because it'll track that. And again, that is not an affiliate code. And last but not least, we'd like to give a shout out to Michael LaRocca, contributing author on HTMLAllTheThings.com. Michael is the author of Self-Taught, the X Generation blog at selftaughttxg.com. And save up to 20% on Scrimba. Go check that out at our link. It'll be in the show notes on HTMLAllTheThings.com and in the show description. Scrimba.com/links/HTML all the things. Get yourself a nice discount and a nice developer education as well. And that's it. Feel free to leave a comment or a review on the platform that you are listening to this on, and this outro will sign us off.
You've been listening to HTML All the Things podcast. Web development, web design, and small business. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you appreciate that we talk to you like human beings. And we hope you had some fun. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Patreon at HTML All the Things. And on Twitter at HTML Everything. Until next time, this is HTML All the Things, signing off.